Today James is having yam and pineapple pizza soup. And what I did is I baked a yam and grilled some zucchini, onions, yellow bell pepper, and pineapple. And there's some cheese bread that I've sliced up and toasted. And James has been putting kale in his soup lately, so I brought it out just in case he wants it. And what I did is I made the soup with 1/4 of a package of this barbecued pulled pork seasoning and about 1 cup of pizza sauce and 2.5 cups of water, and boiled that up. So this can be made outside, and I'll tell you how. So James is going to have some blueberries and tiramisu cake for dessert, and we're going to talk about Livinenko Jesus Revolution 2012, the Beach House, and Scream 6, it looks like. I didn't know they made that many. And James found a sweet picture of one of our little babies that I guess you'd used as a bookmark, and that's cheered me up immensely. So it's very hot in our house right now, and it's because we're in Lethbridge. And
I don't know which one that was, but it's almost...
That's little Elton.
There we go.
Such a handsome little guy. He had some big ears on him.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's got to be us because of the flowers. She would have framed it. And
Yeah.
the flowers
So
that
handsome.
grow. Yeah, I put it in one of these books. That picture is way better than this particular book, but that's the way it goes.
And I'm going to talk about... Oh, sorry. I'm going to talk about wildflowers across the prairies. And this one's by F.R. Vance, J.R. Jousey, and J.S. McLean. And as I recall, they're a group of people from Saskatchewan. Maybe not originally, but I don't know.
Maybe the University of
Yeah,
Saskatchewan?
I think so. So, but I'd have to look in the back again, so maybe I've forgotten. I haven't read that since I first picked it out. So, this book is pretty great. The pictures, they might seem a little old and outdated for you. They're probably taken in the 70s or 80s or something like that. Whenever this was published, I can't really tell you when, but it was published in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. That's cute. 84. So around then. So the pictures, they don't look as showy as the ones that we normally see. But you know, I am accustomed to, once I get home from a hike and I'm looking through the plants, like there's a lot of plants, you'll notice I labeled them mystery plant. If you know what they are, please let me know. And so far I haven't had anybody let me know. But maybe they will eventually. But once I get home, I look at those videos or the pictures that I take of the plants, or both. And then I go through this book and I try to find out what they are. And sometimes it's tough to find. Like, I have a bookmark here. I'll show you. This is white lettuce, is this plant right here. So that's a line drawing, and it's pretty hard to tell. And even from the description, you're like, oh, you know, you're trying to measure out in your head how many millimeters across is this flower, you know, and or did I think it was? And so anyway, I didn't know what it was, and I was trying to look up pictures, and then I looked up glaucous white lettuce, which is not the same plant. But, you know, I could tell from these drawings actually here, and a little bit in the flowers, but here there was a little more sticking out from the middle, and I thought, you know, that might actually be it. So I saw that recently, and it took a couple books to try to figure it out. And usually once I'm done looking at the books, then I'll go to the internet and I'll just put in usually the Latin name, but sometimes the common name. But common names are tough, you know. Sometimes there's a lot of common names that they're for commonly used for many different plants, so it can be hard to find plants by a common name. But anyway, so I'll put that in Google for pictures and I'll look it up, and usually I'll get, I don't know, 1,000 pictures or something, like so many pictures, right? And so I can look and go, yeah, I think that's right. And then I'll look to an official source, like something within the government of the United States or Canada or something like that, right? And try to see if, yes, it looks right there too. So that's how I'm trying to find all of these plants. But if you're looking for wildflowers across the prairies, this is actually a good book to look through. So I would say that one's worth giving a look-see. So, it's so warm. Holy moly.
And it's still morning time.
Yeah, I had the fan going all night, but it didn't seem to cool things down. I opened up the door and I'm outside and I'm like, it doesn't even feel that cool out here, so how can I cool off the house? Anyway, Livinenko. Based on a true story, maybe you remember it, made big news, and as it should have. So this one stars David Tennant, and wow, did he ever do a great job. He just nailed the Russian accent. It was so believable. But he's a great actor, and I mean, he played a very different kind of character than
Doctor Who.
Yeah, exactly. He's very different here. So anyway, this was a mini-series, so it was 4 episodes, and it worked out to be 197 minutes long. And yeah, it felt long, but this is an important story to do, and they did it well. So I gave it the top of the stack. It wasn't as exciting as some of the movies down below, but this is worth watching. It's actually a must-see, as far as I'm concerned. And you were listening to it. What did you think?
Well, ordinarily I'll just listen in and concentrate on what I'm reading.
Yeah.
And kind of listen in. But this one I kept on listening, and listening is like hearing a radio broadcast or something like that.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Hörspiel in German. Hear plays.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a lot of them. Some of their great writers of the 20th century. And it's not exactly gripping. You know how it's going to end. Yeah. But like Pauline says, you've got to know it and you got to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the assassination happened in 2006. Here's a PhD guy, teaches at a second largest university in Canada. 2014, 8 years later. Russia has a right to the Ukraine, and Putin is our ally in the war on terror. And all I said over the phone, all I said was, he's the worst terrorist of the 21st century. What are you talking about? He's an unreliable ally, and we sometimes choose allies that are awful people. Stalin, one of the greatest mass murderers in history, along with Mao and Hitler, was, I think, a little less virulent than Hitler, and so it was probably a good idea to ally with him during World War II. But if someone said, oh, he's our ally against totalitarianism or authoritarianism, what? He was the greatest totalitarian, I think, of all time. So, this, my respondent or whatever, had just conveniently forgotten about this particular assassination.
Yeah, you can't forget about this.
And forgotten about the attempted assassination of a guy, I think, called Yushchenko, who is running for the leadership of
Prime Minister
the Ukraine.
I don't know what.
Yeah, exactly right. And I've just finished reading. You're going to get a dose of Putin.
My hair. See, that's the thing. If I don't tie my hair up, it gets in the food. It's terrible. I could never be a chef.
Well, it's long hair. It's easy to find.
I think it makes it worse.
Anyway.
I ate a lot of Opie hairs too.
Well, there's a lot of Opie hair. That you can't do much about because there's, about this long. Anyway, it's like a litany, reading this biography of Putin, of the people he's killed outside of Russia. Terrorism. What can you say? And of course, terrorism in the Ukraine. He was doing it in 2014 when he was stomping in there, and of course he's been doing it on a much grander scale. He'd been doing terrorism in Grozny, in Chechnya, even before he came to power, 1999, I think roughly November of 1999. And then he did another dose of it in 2011, starting in 2011, doing terror in Syria. You know, mass smashing of cities and stuff like that caused this horrible refugee crisis. Of course, Turkey contributed by passing the refugees on to Europe. Hey, fellow Muslims, you go on and you settler, colonize, imperialize for us Europe. Yeah, but yeah, Putin by 2014, it should have been very clear, was a war criminal, a terrorist, and all sorts of stuff. And here, this PhD is, of course, PhD in English, and unfortunately, folks in English think they know everything. And because novels have the creative truth, novelists make things up in a creative way. It's even more real than reality. Anyway,
You're not going to put the yams and pineapple stuff in your soup?
I was thinking of eating that separately, but
Okay.
I can remember you saying about adding stuff
Yeah.
in. But
I just wanted to show people how to make it
yeah,
right here.
make it really fancy. But I really like, this is an awesome way to eat kale.
Yeah, he's putting it in
Kale
my
is
soup.
not that great. I don't mind it. And now in a smoothie, it's a real roughie. It's like the Saskatchewan Rough Riders when they win a Grey Cup. Very powerful. But or the Ottawa Rough Riders back in the day, or Teddy Roosevelt's. Well, they didn't have to be that powerful back on San Juan Hill back in 1898. But did I say Teddy Kennedy? I hope I said Teddy Roosevelt. Kennedys are on my mind nowadays. Anyway, this is, what else did it?
Our brains are kind of cooked from the heat, so.
Well, also still recovering from rather
Yeah.
powerful, speaking of powerful, walk we did in Waterton, not like yesterday, but the day before. I'm still in recovery, so it goes. And so one of the things I found is pineapple goes well enough with kale. It's like I wouldn't create a restaurant with
Well,
that
it's
as a
probably
feature
because
recipe.
the bromelain, right?
Okay.
It helps with the digestion, so maybe.
Maybe. I just think the taste kind
Okay.
of counteracts the kale and stuff like that. It doesn't make the kale special.
Yeah.
You know, like don't go around making it up and then spitting it out when you don't like it that much. It just makes it palatable. So it doesn't make it really fantastic. So yeah, this is about food as well as about the movies. In fact, it's a deck dinner. We call it a deck dinner. And to me,
Dinner and a movie.
that's the most important thing. So I hope you don't mind me talking that much about kale. Kale is a really good nutrient. It's good for cancer.
And this wouldn't be a movie you would want to put on for your first date. Might be your last date.
Well, it's like almost 3.5 hours longer than my calculations.
So long.
It's important.
But it's important.
To grasp these sorts of things. It's probably better to read a book. I've got Livinenko's a book about Livinenko and stuff like that. But if you don't have much of a taste for reading, then I
I think it's actually great to put on a DVD first and just think, oh yeah, that makes me want to read more into the topic.
Yeah, exactly right. So I was watching Neil Ferguson, Civilization. I started the book. It's not that good. Neither is his documentary, but it's important to deal with the issues he's dealing with.
I mean, we can't know everything. We don't have time to read up on everything. So you just give yourself a little dose, like I was talking about the other wildflower book. yesterday. And maybe you'd want to start with that one before you get this one, but this one's a better book from the, just borrow it from the library and go out on walks and see what you can find and look in the book,
The Job kite one, you actually own them.
No.
Oh, you got that from
No, you own that one, but
Okay,
I don't know where yours is. So
yeah, I've got
I
okay.
I borrow them from the library whenever.
There we go. Okay.
So
Okay.
they got this one for me from Fort McLeod, it looks like.
They don't have it here. Isn't that shameful?
Fort McLeod Public Library. That's great.
He worked at the University of Lethbridge, but they don't have it at the downtown library here. That's absolutely shameful.
Anyway. So, but you can find that book actually, I found it online. They've uploaded it now for the Blackfoot Library.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So
Blackfoot.
you can come across it online.
The Blackfoot has a lot of
as a PDF or whatever. You can upload it and look at it there if you can't access it through a public library. You probably have access to the internet. Almost everyone does, right? So there you go. Anyway, I guess I'll tell you how you can make this soup outside first. So when I was a teenager, or no, college years, when I first went to college, then I really liked a product called Pizza Squeeze, and I bet it's a favorite of a lot of college students. Anyway, most of my meals, Pizza Squeeze were a part of most of my meals. So anyway, this would take probably about a bottle of Pizza Squeeze, and so you can take your cup of pizza sauce and your seasoning, and you can make this outside on the deck. You can have your electric kettle outside, so you're not heating up the house, and boil up your water, pour it into your bowl with the stuff, and stir it up, and you can grill your vegetables and bake your yam outside ahead of time, keep it in the fridge, whatever. You can make this whole thing outside and just put it together when you're going to eat it. Why not?
Yeah, those grilled vegetables look so good. I was just going to eat them separately.
Yeah.
I'll put probably some of them in this here.
So, the next movie I'm going to talk about is Jesus Revolution, which was also based on a true story, or it says a true revelation in the beginning, I think, and that was great. So, I have never seen Kelsey Grammer do so well. He was made for this role. He did such an awesome job. And this movie actually brought tears to my eyes. I think they helped people understand when they're people who are seeking salvation, people who are touched by God in some way, and that joy that they feel. And it's a beautiful thing. So, and they made it seem beautiful. They could have made this movie a different way and made it seem all like exploitative or whatever. Or, I don't know. Or just cultish or something, but they didn't do that. They made it seem beautiful, and I love that they did. It was great. So, this is a story about the 1970s young Greg Laurie searching for all the right things in all the wrong places until he meets Lonnie Frisbee, a charismatic hippie street preacher, and Pastor Chuck Smith. And it's great. It got second in the stack, and honestly, I was going to put it first, but I got to put Livinenko first.
So what role does Grammer play? Is it the pastor, Chuck Smith, or what?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. So honestly, I think everyone should watch that movie. So good. 2012. Now this had a lot of excitement. There were buildings falling, and the earth cracking apart, and tidal waves, and volcanoes erupting, and all sorts of apocalyptic stuff, right? And I think this is funny. I wondered, while I was watching this, I'm like, okay, well, I wonder if that's why young people are so climate crisis, climate catastrophe, instead of just it has to be some extreme thing instead of just global warming or whatever, climate change. And it's important that to realize that humans are having a negative effect on the environment around us. And yet, you have a bunch of people here that they're trying to push their way onto the ark, as it is, and they manage to succeed. They go to great lengths and flying around and get around the world, and there they are. They get onto the ark somehow. And maybe that's what young people are thinking. Maybe they're thinking, yeah, I'm going to get onto that ark, and it's going to be me and 1,000 other people, and everyone else is going to die, and oh well. Because they were bad guys anyway, I guess. Or whatever you want to do to justify thinking that way. But honestly, there's one guy in this, like, they kind of make it seem like a joke. All of this big explosions and everything, and Woody Harrelson, honestly, his character, he seems like a nutcase, right? And he's the one who's telling this guy, the John Cusack's character, whatever, that it's the world ending and all this stuff, and it's going to start in California, and then Yosemite is going to kaboom or whatever. Anyway,
San Andreas Fault is going to fall.
Yeah.
I think they were talking about that.
Yeah, and yeah, you betcha that's going to happen. But is it going to look like this? I doubt it. Is it going to mean the whole world's going to end? I doubt it. And yeah, what's going to happen to Vancouver? And James, we were hiking in Waterton the other day, and James said to a man from Hawaii he was talking to, he said, what do you think Waterton's going to look like when that mountain comes down on it? Or, and because they were talking about Frank Slide and stuff like that. And
that would be Crandall Mountain.
A lot of, Frank Slide was the end of the world for a lot of people who lived in Frank. And when, I guess the mountains along Vancouver and stuff, they're volcanoes, right? They're just dormant, aren't they?
Some of the ones along I think it's the Coast Range, or maybe a little bit more inland. I'm glitching on the name right now, but they extend all the way from at least northern California up into BC. Mount St. Helens is one of those. And that went up May 18th, 1980. But there is a very precarious fault just to the west, as I recall, of Vancouver, and it's, I think, much more likely to go and much more explosively than the San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault keeps on having little glitches that kind of keep the pressure from building up, but the pressure off Vancouver, it just keeps on building up, and when it goes, it's going to go apparently quite badly.
Yeah. But what do you do? And do you say, oh, there, move everyone out of Vancouver, because who knows what's going to happen?
Well, we keep on adding to the total.
Yeah. So anyway, it works out in this movie. They were selling tickets to really wealthy people, $1 billion a head, to get on the ark, and I don't know. I imagine that's how it will be. That, if anything major happens, it's those people have bomb shelters or something to go to, or whatever. I don't know. But
in the 80s, a long time ago, I was anticipating what will happen. It used to be land was to a certain, with hunter-gatherers, the land was kind of like the commons. And then people started to make property out of land. And then countries at least started to make property out of water. And like nowadays, you can own your own little pool and so on and so forth. But the last step will, Elon Musk are probably thinking of making a property out of space.
Well, it will be air. Like, farmers right now, they probably think, oh, I have so much land and so much sun available for my crop and whatever, and they'll find that eventually the government, I mean, they only own just not very many inches of land, actually, of the depth of soil of because they don't own the mineral rights or anything. There are a few farmers that do, who've had their farms a long time, and so they actually own the mineral rights. But it'll be that the farmers won't own the airspace, so they'll just like oil rigs go into farmers' land, and if you're a farmer, you can't stop them.
That's here in Alberta, Canada.
So, they'll pay the farmers to go onto the land, but if you don't want them there, they're gonna get it anyway, So anyway,
they can frack with impunity, apparently.
Next it'll be they'll put up solar panels and wind turbines and stuff on farmers' land, and the farmers won't be able to do anything about that either. So, whatever.
Ultimately, though, when it comes to air, you'll have to be rich to survive. I mean, we're looking at what's happening now, and it's just affecting old folks or people with trouble with their pulmonary systems. But eventually, people be walking around, and old rich people be walking around in hazmat suits, and everyone else can go hang. And that's literally what will happen. Well, not literally.
Yeah, but have it all go, to hell in a handbasket over just a matter of hours. That's unlikely. I mean, there's one thing, like James has talked about sunspot activity and stuff like that, right? And how right now we are experiencing some interesting weather. Will it be as interesting 5 years from now? Or is it due to sunspot activity?
Well, if it is, it's going to get worse because we're not at sunspot maximum.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I don't know. It might be contributing. I think there might be a variety of different factors, including climate change.
So, next movie, The Beach House. And at first, I thought this movie was going to be really great. It was, there's a young man takes his girlfriend to his father's beach house, and they decide to stay a little longer than expected or whatever, and a couple of his father's friends end up in the beach house because the young man hadn't told his dad he was going to stay longer, and his dad had his friends there. So, but in any case, the young man's girlfriend is studying, she's in her third year of university studying chemistry, and she wants to go into astrobiology, I think it was. And so I thought, this is really interesting. So she explains that, no, it's not really that they're looking for life on other planets, it's that they're looking